Now how come my guy doesn't save me like that? Hello everybody and welcome back. My name's Argonaut, and if you didn't know already, I've recently been going down memory lane through the original Crash Trilogy. I've already done reviews of Crash 1 and Crash 2. The link to those will be in the description box down below. And now, we're finally finishing off our adventures with the Marsupial with Crash Bandicoot 3, or rather,
Crash Bandicoot 4!
Quick note before we get started, I will be using the Sane Trilogy version of this game, and not the original, as that's all I have access to right now. But now, sit back and relax as we take a look back at Crash 3's development history, gameplay, as well as my thoughts on it, and the story. And, if you like this video and want to see more like it, feel free to click that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it, and with all that shameless promotion out of the way, on with the video! After the release of Crash Bandicoot 2 in 1996, Universal still had a deal with Naughty Dog to fund their next two games. So after Crash 2's release, Naughty Dog got to work creating the next adventure for Crash. They were given a time limit of 10.5 months, and a budget of a little over $2 million to get the next game done. That's right, you heard correctly. Crash 3 cost over $2 million to make. For Crash 3, Naughty Dog added 3 extra game engines to the game, which were used for the airplane, jet ski, and motorcycle levels, as well as adding Coco as a somewhat playable character for certain levels, even giving her a boss fight of her own, which is the first and only time it happened throughout the whole trilogy. But after starting development in January of 1998, Crash 3 was released in US on November 3rd of that same year, and Europe on December 11th, with it releasing in Japan on December 18th of 1998. Nowadays, can you imagine a big first-party game being made in that time frame? When this game released in 1998, I was 7 at that time, and I had my PlayStation for almost a year. With Crash 2 being my first game, and also logging a ton of hours on it, I of course begged my parents to get me Crash 3 for Christmas that year, which they delivered, although that year for Christmas, I couldn't wait and actually unwrapped Crash 3 a day or two early, and played through the first 5 levels, before rewrapping it and putting it back under the tree. It was the perfect plan, except I was a kid and didn't know how to wrap presents for crap. Hell, I still don't know how to wrap presents for crap, even now, almost 30 years later. Of course my parents caught me, and on Christmas Day that year, I started the morning off by getting a beating. Ha. Good times, good times. My half-brother would later on go to take and sell my copy of Crash 3 to GameStop. We obviously didn't have the best relationship back then, but when I was a kid, I honestly liked Crash 3. I couldn't stand some of the new playstyles involved, but I more or less liked the game, although not as much as Crash 2. Although, now that I look back, I can't tell if Crash 2 was getting more of a bias because I played it first or not. Just like with Crash 2, the story for Crash 3 picks up right where Crash 2 leaves off, with Cortex's space station being shot down and landing on a random temple, which is kind of funny here. The secret ending for Crash 1 with him flying off with Tana is completely non-canon, but the secret ending for Crash 2 is the true ending for the game. But anyways, when Cortex's space station hits the temple, it releases Uka Uka, a witch doctor mask that is a brother to Aku Aku. It turns out Cortex was apparently working for him the whole time and was supposed to follow his orders to take over the world. And now, because Cortex released him from the temple that he was trapped in, Uka Uka forgives him for losing all the crystals and gems to Crash, and comes up with a new plan. By employing the help of a scientist called Entropy, who has created a time machine, they would travel back in time and collect all of the crystals long before Crash ever got them, and take over the world. Somehow. I mean, seeing as the Cortex Vortex and the space station is long gone, there's not really a device for them to use anymore, but whatever. But, sensing that his brother is free and up to no good, Aku Aku, Crash, and Coco go to collect the crystals first. Now, as far as stories go, Crash 3 has to have the worst story yet. I mean, let's take a look back at everything so far. In Crash 1, Cortex creates an animal army that he was going to use to conquer the world. After getting foiled by Crash, he created a giant Cortex Vortex in the space station in Crash 2, that I'm guessing would put the people of the world under mind control or something. They're not really ever too clear about that. But now, all of a sudden, in Crash 3, it turns out he was working for someone else the whole time? I mean, is Uka Uka the one that told him to create the animal army to begin with? Does that mean that he's indirectly responsible for Crash's creation? On top of all that, how the hell does Uka Uka conveniently know a guy with a time machine? And on top of all that, how are Crash and Coco able to stroll up and use the same time machine that the villains are using? Shouldn't the villains just jump him and Coco in the present outside of the machine? But maybe I'm just overthinking it though, because let's be real, I don't think anyone expects a 5-star story from a frickin' Crash Bandicoot game. The gameplay for Crash 3 is the same as Crash 2. You run, jump, spin, and slide throughout levels to make it to the end. And similar to Crash 2, you're able to choose from any 1 out of 5 stages to travel to collect a crystal, and make it to the end. After you beat 5 levels, you fight a boss at the end of a stage, so you can then move on to the next 5 stages. But, unlike the first game, you get power-ups in this game whenever you beat a boss this time around. You get the enhanced body slam that creates a bigger shockwave around you, which personally, I didn't even know what it did until I blew myself up near a box of TNT. The double jump, which would be a good ability, except you have to time when you hit the jump button again when you're at the top of your jump. Once you learn the timing for it, I'm sure this isn't a problem, but I don't even know why I have to go through that. I'd sooner just use the slide jump, which is more consistent and reliable. You also get the Death Tornado ability, which increases the length of your spin and even lets you glide for a bit. I don't really have anything bad to say about this ability, or really anything at all. I didn't use it too often, and I was always afraid in the few cases that I had to use it, since I wasn't too great with the timing of it, and at times when you have to use it, it'll put you near TNT or Nitro boxes. And you also get the Fruit Bazooka, which is exactly as it sounds. A bazooka that launches fruit, which can be used to kill enemies and break boxes from a distance. This, to me, was the most useful ability of the bunch. I found it to be a lot of fun to play around with when you first get it, but I can imagine as you keep replaying levels to accomplish more objectives, you'd probably stop using it more and more. And the last ability that you get are the running shoes, which lets your character speed up during levels. Now, this is important, because after you beat the game, you unlock something called time trials, which Naughty Dog put into the game to add replayability and add some more life to it. When playing through a level and starting a time trial, you need to get through the level as fast as possible. The faster you complete the level, the higher tier time relic you earn, and for every 5 time relics you earn, you also unlock secret stages and a hidden warp room. Moving on, in Crash 3, along with the platforming that you're used to, they also added a couple of new playstyles. When you play as Coco, you get to fly in some airplane levels. You basically just have to fly around and shoot down some blimps or airships on the level and not get shot down yourself by enemy fighter planes. Now, when I was a kid, I struggled so much on the last one of these levels, but when I played the Sane Trilogy as an adult, I was able to shoot through the stage and get the clear gem with no issues. Either the PS1 version was harder with this section, or I was just terrible. Another new gameplay style that they added to the game were these racing sections, where Crash gets a motorcycle and has to come in first place in a race to get the gem. Honestly, I hated these sections. As someone that doesn't like racing games to begin with, you can imagine the amount of fun I had while trying to do this. Coco also gets stages where she has to go through a level on a jet ski. I don't really think too much of these stages. I didn't love them, but at the same time, I didn't hate them. And lastly, there were a couple of underwater stages, which I truly hated. I mean, first off, who likes underwater stages in a platforming game? They heavily slow down your pace, and at least in the Sane Trilogy version for Crash 3, the controls were awful. It felt like it took Crash about a second and a half to start responding to what you're doing. Not to mention, if you want him to stay still, it feels like it takes a couple of seconds for him to stop. Especially in sections when you're stuck between 2 obstacles and need to wait for a window to make him pass through. I wasn't the biggest fan of all the vehicles, but since this was Naughty Dog's last time doing a full game with Crash like this, I can see why they did it. Might as well go all out and throw in as much as you can. Crash 3 also has the most varied stages out of the trilogy. With the time machine, Naughty Dog was really able to throw Crash into different settings, besides some type of jungle, from medieval times to futuristic cities to even prehistoric jungles. Not to mention, I like that it takes Crash out of that grey, depressing warp room he spent the second game in. The boss fights in this game were also easily the best boss fights in the trilogy. I can't even think of one bad one among the bunch. But instead of going into too much detail, I'm just gonna make a video about my least favorite bosses and how I felt about them, similar to the ones I made about Crash 1 and Crash 2 already. Although, there's something that confuses me here. Tiny the Tiger, who's returning from the last game, is the first boss you face. But what's weird here is in the last game, he was working for Embryo to stop Crash from getting crystals to give to Cortex. So now, all of a sudden, he's working for Cortex to take the crystals from Crash? I mean, it's really kind of weird considering that Crash 2 takes place right before Crash 3. Let me know in the comments section down below, what was that all about? And one last thing before I move on. In Crash 3, you're also able to get a secret ending by getting all the clear gems and colored crystals. In the regular ending for the game, after you beat Cortex, you see him, Uka Uka, and Entropy get sucked into a wormhole and vanish. Now, in the secret ending of the game, instead of keeping their fate ambiguous, you can see that Uka Uka and Entropy got sent back to the past and are currently babies fighting over who gets Uka Uka. Huh. I wonder then, why did we need to collect the clear gems just to see that? In Crash 2, collecting the clear gems was so you could use their power to fire a laser to bring down a space station. Here, it's just for no reason. But, hey, again, that's me looking way too hard at the plot of a frickin' Crash Bandicoot game. After Crash 3 was released, just like the games before it, it went on to be a success, selling 2.9 million copies by February of 1999, and selling over 5.7 million copies, making it the 13th best-selling PS1 game of all time. With only one more game to be made in their deal with Universal, Naughty Dog would go on to create Crash Team Racing and be immediately bought by Sony after their deal with Universal expired, forcing Naughty Dog to part ways with their popular mascot, as Universal owned the rights to Crash. But, under Sony's umbrella, they would go on to create a new IP, called Jak and Daxter. To this day, more than 20 years later, Sony still owns Naughty Dog, and I honestly don't think Naughty Dog has cranked out a bad game yet. As for Crash, he'd go on to have multiple studios take the wheel and develop games for him, with mixed reviews, before going into hibernation in 2008, only to come back to the scene 9 years later with the Sane Trilogy, which is the original trilogy remade from the ground up. This proved to be so successful that they made the fourth game for him called Crash 4, It's About Time, which was actually the first game that I looked at in this whole Crash retrospective. And now, it's also been confirmed that Crash will have a Netflix cartoon. And who knows, if that's popular enough, maybe we'll get a Crash 5 at some point. Honestly, while I think Crash 3 has the best platforming stages of the trilogy, and adds so much more to the game with the power-ups and time trials, and improved upon Crash 2 in practically every way, I still feel like if I had to choose, I would still sooner go back to Crash 2 to play casually, with its more simplistic stages, and just so I don't have to deal with the annoying vehicle stages and underwater stages of Crash 3. But that's just me, and those are my thoughts on Crash 3. Naughty Dog's real last hurrah before they moved on. Well, do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What's your favorite Crash game in the franchise? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you. And with that being said, I'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for watching.